Welcome back, chemistry teacher. Boy, these videos are flying. At least for me, you'll have to let me know how these are on your guys' perspective. Today we're doing video number 4, which is going to look at the pacing guide in our curriculum map. So let's just jump in, take a look. Ooh, sorry, I just came up a flight of stairs, catch my breath, and we'll go through this. So I'm starting off at the curriculum landing page. I showed it briefly when we're going over that. You're just going to scroll on down to your concepts. And then your pacing actually starts down here. So we're going to start up from the top and we'll go on down. Let me take a drink. I should have waited to record. There's your little ad revenue right there. Thank you, Dr. Pepper, for sponsoring this video. All right, so for each concept that you guys do, I've pulled information from Discovery Ed. So the atomic theory and concept 2, you actually have 2 parts to it. So 2.2 and 2.3. I grouped these by how Discovery Ed had these set up. So it's in unit 2, I grouped them together. And then you'll see concept 3, you're doing 3.2 and 3.3. So I kind of grouped them based off of what unit they were in Discovery Ed. That's why there's different breaks in it. Your student learning objectives, these are pulled right from Discovery Ed. Here's what I really like about these. Most schools and instructional leaders are asking teachers to develop student objective statements. Typically, those are in the form of an I can statement. I can do this. All you have to do is put I can't do, the student can before this. So either you put the student can determine an atom's number of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Or if they want it in the form of an I can statement, I can determine an atom's number of protons, neutrons, and electrons. So these are very nice and easy to put up on your board, which is typically what they want for student learning objectives or I can statements. And these are pulled right from Discovery Ed, so it's going to align to all the content that's there. So typically when I'm planning a lesson using all this stuff, I'm going to plan things out. I'm going to come up here and say, which one of these fits my lesson today? And then you're going to get the right verbiage, the right DOK levels for objectives. And then you can say, this is straight from the resource, this is from the curriculum map. Gasline told me. So you are covered. All right, guiding phenomena suggestion. So for each concept, you kind of get a different phenomena question that you want to answer. It's kind of different than the overarching phenomenon, but throughout this lesson, they should be able to figure out what information about an atom can be determined from its parts. So when you look at the parts, you got the electrons, the protons, the neutrons, and if those parts change, what does that tell you about the atom? You can change the electrons of an atom without changing what it is. It might change its properties a little bit, but if you change the protons, you got a whole different atom. So that's kind of what that idea is going for. You've got linked to your standards that are tied exactly to this concept. Typically, they at least want on your board, some schools, at least the standard written out. They don't necessarily like all of this written out. And that's more for your instructional coaches and principals and anyone walking through. They can see, okay, that's their standard. And then when they're observing, are they aligned to it? So hopefully no one's pressuring you to write this up on the board. Ooh, I'll mess it up, Jared. Don't write out this full thing. That's not what students need. This is definitely a teacher-focused thing, but I've seen it. I've seen it all. And also, you got your links here to break down those standards for you as well. So that's all like preloading, got all of our information, helping us plan, write out our lesson plans. Right? That's all going to help you fill those out. And then the actual pacing guide. Now, I've broken these down by weeks. As I talked about earlier, very loosely related to how you should be going through the unit. So I wouldn't necessarily say that you have to follow this. In my middle school curriculum, it actually gives you estimated time, so it's more accurate. Whereas this one, we're kind of left to how much of it are we going to do? What other things are we bringing in? And so it's kind of more of a guess. So don't feel like this is mandatory, but it is kind of a good breakdown for, okay, I won't be able to get through concept 2.2 in 1 week, but it should take me 2, 1.5, something like that, and before I move on to the next one. So hopefully that's kind of helping you. But if you're bringing in more information, you might find that you're going to spend more time in a concept. And if you're doing less, you could move through these pretty quickly. So let's not worry too much about the weeks. It's kind of generalized to help you make sure that you're not going too slow or too fast. All right. I've broken this down into a few different columns. And your most useful column is going to be over on the right. This is where all the actual content is. And then these columns over here are still useful, but just not as you won't go there as often. The suggested assessment actually is useful for looking ahead at what the practice assessment and the concept assessments. I mentioned this in the curriculum landing page video. If you want to pull questions for students for do nows, exit tickets, you want to look ahead at the verbiage and the way they ask certain questions, this is a great spot to go to. And this is actually these two documents, well, for this concept. So I would have pulled from these for the quarter test. I would have pulled from those as well as from 2.3 and all the other ones. I went through them and pulled out certain questions. So that's where they came from. You have the answer key. You can even assign these online, though I don't think you'll be covering everything that's listed in them. So, but it's good to kind of use that for your planning, looking ahead. The other good thing to look ahead for is your hands-on activities and interactives. And so these are linked here to help you plan out what are my labs? What are we doing to get the kids hands-on engagement? Some of them, like this one is definitely an interactive. So let me show you that real quick. I don't think I showed it when we did an overview of Discovery Ed. But these can be really useful to help kids visualize. Now, we also do have gizmos and PhET, which have good simulations as well. Discovery Ed just has some of their own. And it's going to load up faster than this. I'm just recording and on a Zoom call, so my stuff's going slow. But as you can see, it gives them a bit of information, and then they can create atoms. I think Gizmos has one similar to this. So it's telling me you have a stable nucleus, and I can identify it, and it tells me what I have. Good job, you have built a neutral atom. Now I get to choose, oh, this is hydrogen. There you go. Well, it's a hydrogen isotope. There we go. So this might be useful to either have students do. You could put this on the board and do something with the class activity, whatever you guys want. There's a tracker for all the different elements they're supposed to go through and find all the different elements, the different isotopes of them. So super useful. Those are the virtual labs. And then you have your actual, this one's a hands-on lab, as you see it listed there. And then typically I'm giving you the teacher's guide for these. So like right here, determining the average atomic mass, your teacher's guide. So that's the one that you'll want to use because it has all your materials, what you're going to do, different ways of approaching it. And then this would be the student document that you could print off, or you create your own from that. So those are useful for kind of planning ahead. All of your resources are going to be in this column here. So let's start here. Suggested progression, concept 2.2, and I have a link here for all the resources. If you open up this folder, this is where I downloaded and archived all the content, whether it's visual aids, the alternative assignments, the labs, presentations, all the documents are here. Some of them are linked directly on here. I just didn't want it to be too hyperlinked. So I put some of the, these are just pictures. Oh, that is not the right link there. That's the right link. This one. So this is a graphic organizer. So it's linked. You can see it. You can access it quickly to see if you want it. A periodic table. This came from Discovery Ed. So those are just quick links to help you find things quicker, but they are also found in the resource folder. I've also picked out one video for every concept to help introduce, and they're all video segments, like 2 minutes, something around there. So they're not long. So that's an option for you for introducing the concept. So those I pulled out as this is a good video to kind of tease the idea of what they're going to be learning about. As you go down, I've listed at least a few labs, some of them virtual, hands-on. Occasionally, you got worksheets. Sometimes I pulled these from different places. You'll notice there's no link. You'll find that up in the folder. We also have the presentation. I'm working with one of our teachers who's going to help create some of these for us as the year goes on. So hopefully we have some really good presentations that you can use, modify, whatever you need. So that's my like suggested progression. Do these things, but there's also a few other alternative assignments that I was able to download from Discovery Ed, a couple other different labs. So if you're looking at these labs and the material's different, or it's not something you're comfortable with, you might find one of these, a different virtual lab or a hands-on lab that you go, you know what, I prefer this one. And then that might be something that you can use instead of those. I just put them in the alternative with a brief look at what do I think is useful. The additional videos you'll find, let me show you that real quick. In your Drive folder, I should have just clicked here. That's all right. I have in the alternative assignments category, your additional videos. I mentioned this when we were going over Discovery Ed. They have so many videos or video segments that the best way that I could organize it, just so you can easily see those all listed, was to put that into a Google Doc. So the links all still work, but you can see the name of it. And you don't need this first one, but like if I want to know about atoms and elements or general structure of an atomic nucleus, you see it's helping me. Okay, these are videos that I want to use. You can pull those out. Maybe you're using some online resources where students watch a video on their own to gather some information. So you got a lot of access to videos that take you to Discovery Ed. So you might find that useful. But I put it in the alternative because it's not like I want every video being played. So there are some ideas here that you can pull out. One thing that I'm working on based on timing, I don't know how far I'll get, but I'm starting to create videos for other grade levels for setting up labs. Probably won't get to chemistry or biology this year, or at least right off the bat, but that's one thing I want to work on, and maybe you guys can help create some of those. And then once this is all the content that we have available from Discovery Ed and a couple other places, boom, now we're moving on to the next concept, and it kind of repeats. And so what I found is, again, now when you look at all this material, you've got introduction videos, you got graphic organizers and images, you've got virtual labs, hands-on labs, practice assessments, questions that you can use. Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, there's some things that we've got from Discovery Ed. It's just that the platform itself wasn't just the best area to use and assign everything. So I've tried to pull it out in a way that you can find some useful information now and pair it with the other websites that you like to use, your Gizmos, your PhET. I know someone uses CK12, different things, but we're actually going to use parts of Discovery Ed because that is our main resource. We're paying for it. Now it's a bit more useful. And so hopefully you guys find this useful as you go through. You'll just repeat. And like I said, now we're in concept 3, kind of a repetition of what was there as you go through. And then you do your unit 1 performance assessment, unit 1 project. I typically have this linked to the same exact project as up at the top, so that way students can finalize their learning with this idea. So that's the suggested pacing guide. Again, not super strict on the week pacing, just because there's a lot of stuff out there. I know that some of us using Discovery Ed more so than others. Some are using other resources. I didn't want to put anyone into a box, but at least now this is more tangible, more usable, and we can definitely make improvements when you guys give me feedback as the year goes on. All right, my last video, which I think everyone will find very useful, is putting all of this together to create an example 1-day lesson. And you guys have 90-minute blocks for pretty much everybody, I'm pretty sure. So I'll create a 90-minute block lesson where I pull stuff from our resource, Discovery Ed. I might pull a few from other resources that are common, so your Gizmos or PhETs, and create an engaging dynamic lesson that your students will learn a lot. So that last video will be coming, should be available for you guys. I got a bit of work to do to get that ready. But let's end it there before I keep on rambling forever and ever. So I will catch you guys in the next video.